Well, the Trump administration is celebrating a major win handed down by the Supreme Court on Friday. It allows the president to move ahead with policies that were previously held back by nationwide injunctions issued by federal judges. Let's bring in Jonathan Fahey, former federal prosecutor, former DHS Deputy Assistant Secretary, and former Acting Director of Immigration and Customs Enforcement. So you've worn a lot of hats in Washington. Did the Supreme Court get this one right, Jonathan?
They definitely got this one right, and it's a huge win from President Trump. They got this right because all of these things, all of these injunctions have been really judicial overreach. And this Supreme Court, the conservative Supreme Court under John Roberts, is really restraining the courts and the lower courts and their authorities, because so many of these things were really just an extension of the lawfare we saw before President Trump took office. But these were things within the executive branch to make these decisions, on, whether or not certain things should be going on national security-wise, how immigration laws should be upheld, and things like that. So they certainly got it right. These judges should be restricted to the clients or the plaintiffs, not clients, in front of them, and their cases specifically, not nationwide. And that's what these judges were doing, is basically ruling nationwide as opposed to just the cases in front of them, which is an abuse of their power. And this court reined it in. So it's going to not only affect the cases at hand, but probably prevent a lot more of this. And I would, again, call it lawfare, with these groups trying to derail President Trump's agenda through the court. So huge win for President Trump in every single way. The court got this right, and I think it will have a big impact not only for President Trump, but for future presidents to be able to allow them to implement their agenda.
Not surprisingly, the Attorney General had some thoughts about this, pointing out the fact that most of these injunctions came from judges in blue states. Listen to Pam Bondi here.
To put this in perspective, there are 94 federal judicial districts. Of the 35 of the 40 nationwide injunctions filed against this president, against his executive authority as president of the United States, 35 of them came from Maryland, D.C., Massachusetts, California, Washington. I mean, that's crazy.
What do you think? Is it crazy?
Yes, it is crazy. And if you really think about it, the way these judges were viewing President Trump's actions were sort of like he had to get permission from them to be the president of the United States and carry out his jobs. But this idea that you could go into the most liberal district and get a judge that's maybe politically favorable to you, or have a judicial bent similar to what you want to be, and affect the entire country and really prevent an agenda from being put into place, because a lot of times, as you know, cases take a long time to work their way through the courts. And if there was a Democratic president, if somebody was going to the most conservative districts, derailing the Democratic president, the same principle would apply. The president should get to be the president. They don't need the permission of every district court judge to implement their agenda.
There was a kind of a fascinating smackdown among justices on the court regarding this ruling. Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson had this to say regarding the opinion: our rights-based legal system can only function properly if the executive and everyone else is always bound by law. Allowing the executive to violate the law carves out a huge exception, a gash in the basic tenets of our founding charter that could turn out to be a mortal wound. Requiring courts to provide the dagger makes a mockery of the judiciary. Well, Justice Barrett, Amy Coney Barrett, then issued her own rebuttal to that. She writes, "It is unnecessary to consider whether Congress has constrained the judiciary. What matters is how the judiciary may constrain the executive. Justice Jackson would do well to heed her own admonition. Everyone from the president on down is bound by law." That goes for judges too. Would have been some interesting times during the discussion of this case, don't you imagine?
Yes, these are pretty strong words for judicial opinions. I mean, this is the equivalent of sort of the WWE of judicial opinions, but it really shows that not only Justice Barrett, but all 5 of the other conservative judges signed on to her opinion. So they basically endorse what she said, which is really they don't have a whole lot of respect for Justice Jackson. And what Justice Jackson, her points almost seem to be political talking points. Again, they don't agree with she doesn't agree with President Trump. Therefore, whatever he's doing is a bad thing and judges should change it. That's not the role of judges. The judges are supposed to judge the cases before them, not to advise on overall policy and implement only the policies they like or agree with. But this was pretty strong language. A lot of people are talking about it, but I do think it's probably, my guess is, festering over multiple opinions, and Justice Jackson, just for whatever it's worth, took the first shot in this at the majority. So Barrett fired back with her opinion, but again, just shows a real disconnect between the judges. And Justice Jackson is really, what Justice Barrett is saying, is doing what she's accusing Donald Trump of doing, which is exceeding the power of the judiciary. So it's ironic at the very least.
Jonathan Fahey, thanks for your assessment. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.